you something. Don't cry.
Bass. Yes, Hairless here. Firstly, I'd just like to apologise for my voice. I've lost it a little bit, so it's a tiny bit croaky. Hopefully it comes back soon. This is a Patreon request. Thank you to Anna for this one. It is Stigma by V of BTS. I've actually received many comments on my previous BTS videos, particularly my most recent one, which was Magic Shop, saying I should listen to this song. And many comments say that it really shows off V's range. This will be my first time hearing one of V's solo works. So far, for solo works, the members that we've heard are Jimin and JK. The lyrics have the occasional phrase or line in English. This seems to be what BTS likes to do, a stylistic choice of theirs. We've seen it before several times. And here are the lyrics in English. This version that we'll be doing today, it's a lyric video. This was the Patreon request to avoid any risk of a live version being blocked and then having to apply a filter to it, just as we saw with Jimin's Lie. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
숨겨왔어 tell you something. 그저 묻어두긴 이젠 버틸 수가 없는 걸. 왜 그때 말 못했는지. 어차피 아파왔어. 정말 버틸 수가 없을걸. 나 cry. 널 지켜주지 못해서 더 깊이 더 깊이 상처만 깊어져. 되돌릴 수 없는 진율이 조각 같아. 더 깊이 매일이 가슴만 아파져. 나 죄를 대신받아 연약하기만 했던 너.
Right, I mean, this is a funky one. I'm probably going to say that word funky many times throughout this if it stays in this style. And because of that, we see a lot of non-standard harmonic stuff. You know, typically funk harmonies are a bit more complex than your regular standard harmonies. Yeah, some really cool things in there. I didn't know what to expect at first. It was quite stop and start, but we did have some nice opening chords. So if you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp and let's go back to those opening chords. Each one of these chords had a kind of dissonance in there, and the opening itself was very sudden but also very calm, quite soulful. Then the guitar sound coming in on the... Alright, let's hop to the piano, figure out those chords. B flat is in every one of the chords, it doesn't move. This note, the B flat, this is the minor third of G. So it makes the G scale the minor version, and we are in G minor. So there's a certain attention given to the fact that we are in the minor, and minor usually means sad. Especially when we consider these lyrics, it makes sense. And then after this intro, we get quite a pensive break. There's just the beat. And then the I. I'm thinking, what's going to happen now? It's definitely caught our attention. And I was asking in my previous reaction Magic Shop, please do check that out if you haven't already, card up here. I was asking in that about these I sounds that they seem to make, like I. And I received a few comments saying it's just like a vocalization type thing. We get an accentuated chord there. To me, the really prominent note is this, which is right in between the root note G and the minor third that we heard in every chord at the beginning. This dissonance is the exaggerated note, that A here. As for V's voice, yes, it's very airy voice, very light, very gentle. At the top of that phrase, there was basically no sound actually coming out, just air. It's very, very delicate. And then as for the harmony, very jazzy, which isn't typically what you'd expect delicate to be, but they work really well together. Very funky, we've got these jazz inflections all over the place. Same for the rhythms as well, very funk-y rhythms. The piano almost sounds a bit improvisatory, which, as you probably know, is a key element of a lot of jazz music. I mean, I guess this is R&B, which today is a term used very broadly and encompasses many, many different styles, or at least it's influenced by many different styles, including jazz. R&B traditionally was rhythm and blues. Let's see what it says for the modern day definition. Contemporary R&B is a popular music genre that combines rhythm and blues with elements of pop, soul, funk, hip hop, and electronic music. So with this in mind, the harmony is important, and a key element just after that here, it's the subtle harmonies, multiple parts. And I mean the vocal harmonies, because we have many vocal parts being heard. They're quite discordant really, but they're quiet enough to add substance and not be overbearing or seem a bit too scrunchy. For example, on the word cry, which is where the harmonies come in, we get this. Each line by itself doesn't sound too bad, but you put them together and then you get these parallel open fifths. So they're just moving 5 notes apart, and that is quite archaic sounding, a tiny bit peculiar. And it's the low bass note that we can hear that really spices up things a little bit in this context. It's like this growling or swelling at the bottom. Kind of swelling between these 2 notes. Let's move them down a bit. But they're not exact pitches, you know, it's a studio effect. Because of that, there's no solid harmonic foundation in the traditional sense. We could argue this is a bit unsettling, but we could also probably argue that it is solid because of how it feels. It's a bass part that you can kind of just feel and you just know it's there. And how that contrasts V's vocal line, which is in his airy head voice. All right, let's move forward to the chorus. There were several things I liked about the chorus. One was the rhythmic, the stresses or the accents. And what they do in between them. For example, those really funky harmony vocals we just got on the ooh in between. Very, very scrunchy. Very quiet though, so quite difficult to hear. But also on the accents themselves, we get oohs as well. I mean, mostly on the accents actually. And these little piano licks we get in the upper part of the piano. It's a very jazz feel. And of course that chromatic descending bit. If we isolate just the bass part and the brass part, we get this. And if we move them into the same octave, dissonance. Yeah, he has a powerful voice, a great voice, there's no question about that. The lyrics deeper, deeper, the wound just gets deeper. He's singing with a piercing sound, you know, high up, very, very direct. It suits the lyrics well. All right, well, let's carry on. Where we paused, it was another like intense pause moment. bass.
더 깊이 더 깊이 저만 깊어져 되돌릴 수 없는 진율이 조각 같아 더 깊이 매일이 가슴만 아파져 나 죄를 대신 받아 연약하기만 했던 너 I'm sorry, my brother.
Alright, I just want to do a second pause there. There's about another minute left, but there were some things that I just want to quickly mention before I forget. I think I tried to say there was this descending bass line that was... Oh. Well, we get the same thing in the piano, but much higher up. So this descent down from very, very high up, then a couple of seconds, and then this jump, you know, this rise up. They're sending us down and bringing us back up. As well as that, it's just a nice way to get variety in terms of pitch. High pitches, low pitches, quite natural sounding, working in opposite, contrary motion. And speaking of this, the vocals too, they really are kind of all over the place in terms of pitch and register. V is spending a lot of time in the higher registers. Then the speaking, and that's in a rather low voice, to be honest. And then what happens? Well, he goes straight back up instantly to a very airy higher voice, but there is support there as well underneath the same note but down an octave that we can hear. Just there, and then straight back up. Octave support stays, but then harmony comes in as he moves up. So there are a lot of layers at any one time here. Not just the vocals and a number of vocal harmonies, but the instruments as well. There's a lot going on. We have these super quick, synthy sounding chords. I can't really explain them. Just like there, they just go like whoop, whoop. Very Disclosure-esque, if anyone knows Disclosure. So we get one of those quick chords, listen out for that, then followed by a rise up in the high piano, and then comes that descent in the low, low, low bass. Little jazz licks, vocal harmonies on every bit. And then back to the chorus on the words deeper, deeper. Things become a bit more still, but everything is carefully placed and adjusted. It could be a bit tricky to have this many parts and not sound overcrowded, but they've done a great job. And how can they change it up a bit on the repeat of the chorus without just exactly replicating what we heard last time? Well, the O's that I mentioned we get on the stressed beats before, they're now much higher. If we compare to last time. And there's also this one line that sticks out to me. And that repeats twice. It's in homo rhythms with the melody, so the same rhythms at exactly the same time. And this line, because it repeats, it doesn't change notes. But the melody and the harmony, they do change. So it's a nice way to subtly keep something the same amongst change elsewhere. Okay, let's carry on to the end now from where we got to. I'm sorry, my brother. 숨겨도 감춰도 지워지지 않아. Are you calling me a sinner? 무슨 말이 더 있겠어? I'm sorry, my sister. 숨겨도 감춰도 지워지지 않아. So cry, please dry my eyes. 저 빛이 내 죄를 비춰줘. Well, there was a lot going on towards that repeat there. I mean, in terms of everything. Yeah, and it's weird as well because it's not so drastically different from the previous times we've heard the same melodic motifs and everything. Well, I think let's just go over some final bits from that last minute. The obvious thing that stood out to me was this falling chromatic line.
I'm sorry, my brother. 숨겨도 감춰도 지워지지 않아. Are you calling me a sinner?
Having the removal of the beat of the percussion, it helps. We have just clicks, which I think subconsciously are very catchy when you have no other percussion, because we kind of just want to join in. There was also this backing vocal line that really stood out to me. It really caught my ear. Just that. And let's listen out for it here. And once more. After the chromaticism, these chromatic lines we've been hearing throughout, like earlier, we kind of would have just expected, because that fits and is more in line with what we've been hearing. The line we get, so instead of, we get, it's a simpler line harmonically, if we can kind of think of it like that. But because it's different to the musical soundscape that's been building up for the whole song, it stands out more. So in effect, they're taking something that could be thought of as a bit simpler, but using it to the effect of unexpectedness. After that, the beat comes back in, still not heavy, but a little bit more. So we had a beat, then it was removed, we had some clicks, then we have... It's building. We know something big is coming. What is it? Well... So I was surprised here because this top note, they've kept that quite quiet. That's what I was expecting, was like a wow moment. But it's only briefly. And then... he changes the vowel sound. It's more open, a bit less clean, and a bit more of like a pained sound. But definitely it's more powerful. And then he goes up to this G. That's almost as high as your choristers are expected to sing. A lot of high vocals towards the end, and then it finally ends on an unresolved chord, which is interesting considering these lyrics. Please let me be punished. Please forgive me for my sins. Please. Yeah, there we go. Didn't really know what to expect. I mean, that definitely was an exploration of his range for sure. Huge range covered there. And really quite funky. A lot of jazz elements, R&B, you know, covers a lot of things basically. Some really cool things in there musically. Yeah, for me, I'm being perhaps subconsciously reminded of BTS House of Cards. I think there are many stylistically similar things, and I probably enjoy them a similar amount as well. Definitely a lot to think about with a musical hat on. Alright, well, let's leave that one there. Thank you again for this request, and thank you as always to everyone for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content and want to support me, please do so by clicking on the Patreon link on the screen, and I will see you next time.